How's it going? Are you new to Flesh and Blood? Did you just crack your first pack? Well, let me walk you through some things so that you know the difference between C, R, F, L, M, CF, RF, and all of the above, because it's confusing at first, but once you know the terms, you'll be in good hands. All that and more on today's episode. Greetings! On today's episode, we're going to talk about the rarity levels of Flesh and Blood. But to understand the rarity levels, we first must ask the question, where do you obtain the cards? In today's episode, we'll discuss the origin of buying cards from booster boxes, such as this unlimited version of Welcome to Wrathe, or this first edition of Tales of Aria. The very first thing you must understand is that this is a couple of variations of booster boxes that Flesh and Blood offers. Now, in Flesh and Blood 1.0, or pre-2.0, which this Uprising box here is the new representation of, we'll come back to this in a second, there were two types of booster boxes for Flesh and Blood. The first type of booster box was the Unlimited and First Edition. Now, even though these are for two different sets, I can go ahead and show you what a First Edition booster box of Welcome to Wrathe looked like. Now, you'll notice that the big difference is that this one says Alpha and that this one says Unlimited. Now, typically, at your LGS today, in 2022, you won't be finding any Alphas on the shelf. These being the first print run, along with Arcane Rising and Crucible of War, were basically sets that were released and then subsequently had an unlimited version released. This model is no longer the case in Flesh and Blood 2.0, where now there is only one booster box, which contains both the benefits of what was originally in the First Edition and Unlimited boxes. Now you'll notice I did that backwards there. Sorry about that. There were other variations of this same thing. Notice that Monarch here is a good example where you see both the Unlimited and the First Edition, indicated on this box by the First Edition icon located on the back of the box. The Unlimited here is going to basically have the same cards, but with a little bit of different treatment. We're going to go ahead and open some of these up here in a minute to show you the differences between the two packs. Flesh and Blood's first set, Welcome to Wrathe, as an example, has a Alpha and an Unlimited release. Now, as time has progressed, they have dropped the Alpha name and since renamed it First Edition. Now, this nomenclature is still technically outdated, but was available during the Welcome to Wrathe, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War. You'll notice that this one I bought for my LGS at $4 a pack. Crucible of War was released with a First Edition box and, subsequently, an Unlimited box. This nomenclature was then subsequently dropped shortly after when they went to Flesh and Blood 2.0. The other sets that contain this were Monarch, who had a First Edition and an Unlimited print run. Tales of Aria, that had a Unlimited and First Edition print run. Sadly, I don't have an Unlimited box to show you, but the only difference would be the red icon that would be across the side here that says Unlimited. And then we have Everfest. This box was released and currently only exists in First Edition. Legendary Story Studios has stated that there is going to be possibly an Unlimited, but it has been pushed back at least twice at this point. Whether or not they will ever release the Unlimited is still unknown, given that they have transitioned now into Flesh and Blood 2.0. The latest set, Uprising, has been released in a new format in Flesh and Blood 2.0. You'll notice that there is no longer any First Edition or Unlimited markings on the boxes. This indicates that all of the boxes are the same edition. What's different about Flesh and Blood 2.0 is the intermixing of both First Edition style products such as cold foils, rainbow foils, rares, commons, majestics, and now they have added a new label which is called Marvel Rarity. Inside of these boxes are still the same 24 packs that you would typically find in most of your core release boxes, but this variation here is available in only one style, and it is just Uprising. There is no First Edition or Unlimited nomenclature associated with this box. Let's go back and review the historical pack art from the first Flesh and Blood sets up into the most recent. Welcome to Wrathe released with 4 pack arts: Dorinthea, Rhinar, Bravo, and Kassai. Flesh and Blood's second set Arcane Rising released with Azalea, Kano, Dash, and Viscerai. Crucible of War was the first supplemental set released by Flesh and Blood. This set encapsulated the first two sets of Flesh and Blood, Arcane Rising and Welcome to Wrathe. In this Crucible of War set, there were special heroes that have never been seen before in young form released as the rare level, as well as new equipment and a new hero called Shayana, who is released at the legendary rarity level. Before I explain more about the legendary rarity level, let's go ahead and open a pack up to show you what a typical pack contains. Where's my Monarch? For the explanation of rarity, we're going to select today a first edition box of Monarch. This is just some random packs that I had laying around, and we're going to arbitrarily open up one of these packs. One light.
A few moments later.
Sorry about that. Had to redo the camera. We're going to open one light and one dark. In Flesh and Blood, packs contain typically 15 cards, except for the supplemental sets, which contain 10 cards per pack. In Flesh and Blood, the rarity is denoted at the very bottom of the card. For first edition sets, typically, this is filled in where you can see that the letter in the center is a white outline with a gray exterior. The only sets this does not apply to are the first two sets, Welcome to Wrathe and Arcane Rising. Those two leveraged a different rarity system for the first edition cards until the standardization came forth where first edition was in this style and Unlimited, which you will now see in Shayana, is the same look but with an open aspect so that the rarity shows different than first edition. Inside of these packs, you'll typically open it up and see that you'll obtain multiple cards that are at the common rarity. The common rarity is denoted by the letter C for common. In this pack here, so far, these are our commons. Next up, you're going to have a foil. Sometimes this foil can be a rare, which in this case, this is what this card is, and the R denotes that it is a rare. Equipment does exist as well, but for sake of rarity, this is a common. In a pack, you'll get 2 rares or better. In this case, we did not receive any higher level card. Now you'll notice that this is a T for token. Tokens typically are double-sided, and you'll obtain pretty much 1 per pack. Now for the second, you'll notice that this, again, does state on here that these are first edition, and does not state that they are unlimited. So as we open this up, let's see if we get anything different from our first pack. Alright. So, what rarity is that? Common. You guessed it correct. So the first couple cards here are going to be your commons. We won't get into the makeup of the cards or classes today. Instead, we are just focusing on the rarity level. In this case, this pack had a foil common. Captain's Call is our rare, and look at that, we now have the next level of rarity, a Majestic, denoted by a red symbol with the letter M. This is a T, again token, and this is one of the heroes in this set, Prism. Greetings! Future Editing Jacob here. I did leave out a very glaring omitting error from my comprehensive rarity guide, and that is that in the first 2 sets of Flesh and Blood, which is your Welcome to Wrathe and Arcane Rising, there was a rarity level called Super Rare, which is denoted by a purple S. The rarity Super Rare has since been removed from the game of Flesh and Blood, but in the first versions of the game for both Welcome to Wrathe and Arcane Rising, Super Rares existed, and there were 15 in each of the 2 sets. Since then, especially in the new history packs, certain Super Rares have been upshifted to the Majestic rarity level. One example of this is Reckless Swing from WTR, originally a Super Rare, now in the history pack has been re-released as a Majestic. Notice that the cards are functionally the same, but the rarity has been upshifted. Here's some more examples from History Pack 1 of cards that have also been upshifted. Reckless Swing, McGinty Release, Showtime, Route, and Crazy Brew. Let's talk about foil treatments in Flesh and Blood. The first foil treatment is going to be a rainbow foil treatment, which is what you saw when we looked at Shyana just a few minutes ago. You'll notice that it is still very interesting to look at, but in this case, it does not have any super reflective or what they refer to as cold foil because it is not a first edition card. Now, let's look at this card, Pulse of Candlehold. Do you notice a difference? This card is a cold foil, and in the case of this cold foil, you'll notice that the shininess on the card highlights some of this card and is very accentuated by the lighting in the studio here. What's really awesome about cold foil cards is there are also non-foil and rainbow foil variations of these cards available for players, so collectors can go for the highest end one, while players can choose to go for the cold foils. And you'll notice that the cold foiling really adds a very interesting flavor to the overall card. Typically in Flesh and Blood, there's also promo cards that you can get from going to armory events. These are indicated by the letter P located at the bottom of the card, typically in green. This is my favorite, Cracked Bauble. You'll also notice that it has a very special foil treatment on it. Typically, these are cold foils when you get them from the armory event. Now, a promo is not necessarily something that is considered rarer or harder to get than any other card, unless it's for a specific event such as a prize from an event you might go to, or if you just really enjoy the card. Some promos are available at your local armory events. Other promos are available only if you win specific tournaments. The next rarity level that we're going to discuss is the absolute rarest in each set, and that is called the Fable. Typically, there's one Fable per every set. This is the Heart of Findel. This is from Welcome to Wrathe, indicated by the set icon in the bottom. Fables have a little diamond in the bottom indicating their rarity level. These cards will sneak up on you. As an example, we hit one in one of our last videos, and it's really exciting when you do. Other versions of this card include the Grandeur of Valhalla, which you'll notice is from Everfest. And this one is an Arknight Shard. This one is from Crucible of War. One interesting note to consider here is that Welcome to Wrathe has two print runs, Japanese and Belgium. Each of these cards will look identical, but in the boxes, there are actually differences between the cards that are available within the boxes. But to any standard player, you'll never really know the difference. Next up, we have an example of a side-by-side comparison between a non-foil and a cold foil of the exact same card. This is from Uprising. This one on the left is actually a misprint. You'll notice that it's downshifted and you can see a print dot. This one on my right is the cold foil. Notice that they're the exact same card and ability, same set number, and everything. The only difference is one has a very nice foiling pattern to it. Redo! Okay. To recap, Flesh and Blood's rarity levels are P for promo card, T for token cards, C for common cards, R for rare cards, M for majestic cards. The new rarity level available so far in Flesh and Blood 2.0's Uprising and in the next set Dynasty are these Marvel cards, which have a purple triangle. The next level of rarity, Fable, indicated by a gold diamond. Interesting thing to note about Marvels is that Marvels, in this case, in Flesh and Blood 2.0, are both cold foil and double-sided. Not all of them are, but they are still really beautiful to look at. And if you collect these dragons, this is my favorite, just some really beautiful artwork on these. Again, thank you so much for tuning in today. Hopefully this has been an informative episode for the new people to Flesh and Blood, or a refresher for those who need to know more about the rarity levels therein. Until next time, like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon, and one of these days we're going to open up some more packs on this channel, and who knows, we might hit something interesting that you would really enjoy to see. Until then, have a wonderful time. Arcane Rising was the second set, and released with Dash, that guy, Kano, and Azalea. 3, 2, 1. Thanks for tuning in to this quick video about the rarity levels of Flesh and Blood. Some of the things that you get in Flesh and Blood necessarily don't come from any particular person or have a rarity associated with them that might be considered normal. But as you adventure through your times and gather really interesting cards, you will enjoy this game probably just as much as I have. Until next time, keep collecting, keep playing, and now you know the rarity levels of your cards.